Shocking truth. Theo went incognito at midnight. What he found changed everything forever. As the clock struck midnight, a chilling fog rolled through the empty streets of downtown. The moon hung low, illuminating the figure of Samuel Reed, the high-powered CEO of a billion-dollar tech empire, creeping through the shadows. His sharp suit glistened under the eerie glow, but a knot of fear twisted in his stomach. What was he doing here? What kind of secrets lay hidden in the dark corners of the city? Samuel had heard whispers, rumors of strange occurrences beneath the glossy veneer of success. Employees spoke of lost nights and missing files and the nights when people simply vanished. Were they connected? The more he dug, the more unsettling it became. There was a voice in his head, a mix of curiosity and dread. It urged him to see for himself, to confront the mysteries that lingered just out of sight. As he slipped between the buildings, the sound of a distant scream pierced the quiet. It felt like a jolt of electricity running up his spine. He pressed on, heart racing, moving deeper into the abyss of uncertainty. A flickering streetlight cast irregular shadows, making his surroundings whisper stories of despair. He saw a door ajar, leading to the basement of an abandoned building. His instincts screamed at him to turn back, yet something invisible drew him in. He felt this charge in the air, a forbidden energy that wrapped around him like a tight cloak. How many had come before him, he wondered, and how many never made it back? Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As he descended the creaky stairs, the air grew thick, heavy with secrets that smelled like mold and rust. Each step echoed ominously, instilling a primal fear in his gut. He reached the bottom, only to be met with a hallway, lined with paintings that looked horribly familiar. Faces of his employees stared back at him, eyes hollow, mouths agape. How could they? The realization struck him, sending a cold sweat trickling down his spine. This was no ordinary place. What had he unearthed by stepping into the shadows? With every heartbeat, the walls seemed to close in, tightening around him as if alive, waiting. Perhaps this would be his last stop. Or maybe, just maybe, he'd uncover a truth too powerful to ignore. He shuddered. What was lurking just around the corner? Samuel steadied his breath, panic swelling as he examined the grotesque portraits surrounding him. Each face was carved with shadows of betrayal and fear. He staggered back, a tremor creeping through his hands. Had they been down here? What horrors had they seen? The air quivered with silence, broken only by the unsettling drip of water echoing in the stillness. As he turned, scanning the dim corridor, a figure loomed just ahead. His heart raced. Samuel squinted into the darkness, searching for movement. Is anyone there? He called, though the sound felt weak, swallowed by the suffocating gloom. Suddenly, the figure shifted. A gaunt shape emerged, eyes wide and wild. It was a woman, her face smeared with grime, mouth twisted in a silent scream. Samuel stumbled back, colliding with the peeling wall behind him. Please, help me, she whispered, her voice raw and trembling. She looked familiar. Not one of his employees, but someone he knew from the company's early days. Rachel. Shock coursed through him. Rachel. What happened to you? Why are you here? But Rachel's gaze darted around the corridor, as if hunted. They see everything, she gasped, kneeling as if the weight of her words could crush her. They're always watching. You shouldn't have come here. His mind raced. What did she mean? A chill ran down his spine. Had their company become a trap? Was he unwittingly walking into a nightmare born from his own empire? He reached out, but she flinched, her eyes darting toward something just beyond his shoulder. Run, she hissed, voice barely above a whisper. Before it's too late. Before Samuel could react, a low rumble echoed through the hall. The ground shuddered beneath him, sending a wave of panic crashing over his senses. The flickering lights above pulsed angrily, casting erratic shadows that danced like phantoms around them. Go! Rachel screamed, pushing herself to her feet. Her hand grasped his before wrenching free. "You have to get out now." Without thinking, Samuel turned and bolted down the corridor, adrenaline propelling him forward. The walls felt alive, as if they were alive and had heard the warning. Behind him, the darkness seemed to pulse with anger, chasing him deeper into the labyrinth of secrets. He would not let the others become like the portraits lining the walls. He would not end up a ghost in the corporate mausoleum. Suddenly, the hall split into two. To the left, a door stood ajar, light spilling through the cracks. To the right, a staircase spiraled downward into an even murkier abyss. Instinct screamed at him to take the light, but a hollow echo seeped from the dark staircase, luring him in with whispered promises of answers. He hesitated, heart pounding. Should he choose the light or plunge into the dark? Each choice could mean salvation or doom. Just then, behind him, a soft growl echoed, slowly morphing into laughter cold and cruel. Chilled him to the bone. "Samuel, oh Samuel," the voice slithered through the air. "Where do you think you're going?" He felt his chest tighten, as though he were suffocating under the weight of dread. He wasn't alone anymore. But who what had come for him? With a rush of desperation, he made his choice, heart racing as he plunged headfirst into the light, promising himself he had to uncover the truth, or die trying. What awaited him on the other side? Would he unearth the answers he craved, or would he find something far worse than he could imagine? As Samuel barreled into the light, he stumbled into a narrow room, the sudden brightness nearly blinding him. The air was different here. Cleaner, fresher, but tinged with an underlying scent of decay. His eyes adjusted, revealing stark white walls that hummed with a soft glow, the kind that felt almost otherworldly, like he had crossed a threshold from darkness to something perilous. He took a step forward, heart racing, the door slamming shut behind him with a resonating thud that sent chills skittering down his spine. He flashed a glance back, but the doorway was gone, sealed tight as if it had never existed. Panic flared anew. Where was Rachel? Had she escaped too? His stomach dropped. Had she been swallowed by the darkness? In the center of the room stood a table, sterile and cold, but cluttered with bright files and scattered papers, a jarring contrast to the shadowy corridors he had just fled. He approached cautiously, his feet feeling heavier with each step. Then he saw it. A large transparent container filled with what looked like faces? Samuel recoiled, bile rising in his throat. Searing horror clawed at his insides. They were unmistakably human features, twisted in fear and agony, floating as though suspended in a murky aquarium. They stared out at him, mouths opened in silent screams, as if begging for release. He stumbled back, almost tripping over a chair as his thoughts raced. What kind of twisted experiment had he stumbled into? Suddenly he heard a soft click behind him. He whipped around, heart hammering. The air felt charged, thickening as shadows deepened around the edges of the room. A figure stepped from the darkness, wearing a clean white lab coat that contrasted sharply with the chaos surrounding them. It was a man with a sharp jaw and piercing eyes, Dr. Edward Harper, the lead researcher for their company, notorious for his clandestine projects. "Ah, Samuel," he said, voice calm, yet laced with a grappling undercurrent. "So glad you could join me. I must say I had my doubts about you, but you've proven quite resourceful." "Resourceful?" Samuel spat, his anger rising. "This is madness. What are you doing? Where's Rachel?" "Rachel is irrelevant now," Dr. Harper dismissed, eyes glinting like shards of ice. "What you're witnessing is the true nature of our work, true innovation. These," he gestured to the container, "are merely the byproduct of a greater purpose. We're on the brink of greatness." Samuel's mind reeled as pieces fell into place. Lifeless faces, screams trapped in silence. It was a grotesque horror rooted in their complacent ambition. "You're talking about experimenting on people," he shouted, disgust pushing the words out with force. "This is inhuman." Dr. Harper smiled, but it twisted his features grotesquely. "Inhumanity is a matter of perspective, Samuel. Those who sacrifice will be remembered in ways the living cannot comprehend. Don't you see? This is progress." The walls pulsed around him. The shadows intensifying. His escape was now a grim revelation. He rushed toward the glowing emergency exit sign at the far wall. Behind him, Dr. Harper laughed, a sound both chilling and manic. "You can't escape the truth. You'll see it in time." With a surge of adrenaline, Samuel lunged for the door, adrenaline roaring through him, as a heavy weight slammed against the wall behind him, shaking the room to its core. His breath quickened. Would he really make it out, or was he trading escape for the dark truth of his company's sins? As he burst through the exit and into the hall, he realized he wasn't out of danger yet. The darkness was still looming, and it craved his compliance. But something unexpected caught his eye, a flicker of movement down the corridor. Was it Rachel? Or something even worse? He had to decide quickly, but he felt it deep in his gut that the truth was about to unravel in ways he couldn't fathom. Samuel's pulse raced as he took off down the hall, every instinct screaming at him to keep moving. The oppressive atmosphere of the lab loomed behind him, but the flicker of movement ahead drew him like a moth to a flame. He squinted, desperation clawing at him. "Rachel!" he shouted, the sound echoing off the cold concrete walls, blending with an ominous hum that vibrated in his bones. He bolted forward, feet pounding against the ground, heart thrumming in his chest like a war drum. Each step echoed with urgency. The corridor, clinical and sterile, felt like a living thing, encasing him with its bright lights and shadowy corners. A faint whimper echoed from further down the hallway, freezing him in place. It was unmistakably Rachel's voice. "Rachel!" he called again, panic twisting in his gut as he rounded a corner. There she was, but not as he remembered. She crouched on the floor, her hands gripping a nearby railing, wide eyes darting around like a trapped animal. Her face, once bright and vibrant, now bore a gauntness, painted with shades of fear and confusion. Behind her, a heavy metal door shimmered ominously, locked tight as if sealed by some unseen force. Without hesitation, Samuel reached for her. "Are you okay? What happened?" He grasped her shoulders, shaking her slightly as if willing her to snap back to reality. I don't know, Sam." Her voice trembled. "One minute I was just working late and then everything changed. I heard noises, whispers. And then I ended up here." A shiver ran down Samuel's spine. Whispers. What darkness lingered around them? "We have to get out. Now." He glanced back down the corridor, feeling the oppressive weight of the unknown pressing against his back. Were they being hunted? Rachel grabbed his hand, her skin cold as ice. They rushed past the door, but Samuel's instincts screamed at him to look back. He resisted, guiding Rachel through the eerily quiet hall. With each step, they felt the pulse of the building deepen, like a heartbeat awaiting judgment. "Did you see what they were doing?" she asked, voice quaking. "I found these weird files, Sam. They were documenting everything, the experiments, the people." Her voice trailed off. Heavy with realization, he met her gaze, breathing hard. "Those faces, they were the employees," she interrupted, horror etched on her face. "No one made it back, Sam. We have to warn home base, they can't keep this secret. We need to show them what's happening." But no sooner had they set off down the hall when a sharp crack resonated behind them, halting them in their tracks. Samuel turned, instinctively pulling Rachel closer. The once sterile corridor morphed around them, shadows creeping forward like fingers reaching out of the depths. "Run!" he shouted, urgency surging through him. Without a second thought, they bolted, feet pounding against the floor, the world a blur around them. The oppressive darkness threatened to envelop them whole as they sprinted towards the distant hum of fluorescent lights ahead, feeling a sinister presence at their heels. With every breath, the air thickened, the whispers growing louder, echoing their names in a chilling duet. Just as they neared a flight of stairs, the walls trembled, unleashing a resonance that felt alive, threatening to crack their resolve. An echoing voice boomed from behind them. "You can't escape the truth." Panic surged through Samuel as he glanced back to see dark silhouettes emerging from the shadows. "This way!" he yelled, pulling Rachel towards the stairwell. As they ascended, the noise behind them intensified, a cacophony of voices merging into one oppressive sound. Something was behind them, something that thrived in the darkness. They burst through a door at the top of the stairs, panting hard, but the hallway stretched before them, empty yet suffocating. Samuel turned to Rachel, dread pooling in his stomach. "What if we can't find an exit?" she whispered, voice trembling. "That's not an option," he said firmly, determination coursing through him. "We will find a way out." But as they hurried down the corridor, Samuel's breath caught in his throat. Something glimmered in the distance, a large observation window with figures on the other side. They watched, faces obscured, expressionless. Peering closer, he dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd find an ally among the shadows. Then he saw it, a face he recognized among the crowd, twisting in horror, a scream silently frozen in the glass. It sent shivers down his spine. "Samuel!" Rachel exclaimed, grabbing his arm tightly. "What do we do?" At that moment the very building seemed to shudder again, and Samuel knew they had only seconds before whatever was hunting them would catch up. What would he sacrifice to save them? And who were the silent watchers beyond the glass? The darkness beckoned, but light flickered perilously ahead. Time was running out. Samuel's heart raced as he processed the grim face on the other side of the glass. An overly familiar face that should have been far from this hell. Jessica, the laboratory's lead researcher. It felt surreal, paralyzed by horror. Why was she here? What had they done to her? Rachel's grip tightened on his arm, her breath shallow and frantic. Is that Jessica?" "Yeah," he forcibly whispered, unsure if Rachel actually needed confirmation or merely the comfort of solidarity. "We have to figure out if she can help us." But as they pressed closer to the observation window, their eyes locked on Jessica. There was an unexpected flicker in her demeanor. She wavered, then took a fearful step back from the glass, her eyes wide with unspoken panic. Samuel felt a chill slide down his spine, each bead of sweat on his forehead growing heavier. "Sam! We can't stay here!" Rachel exclaimed, pulling him back towards the corridor. The light hummed ominously around them, shadows growing darker, more pronounced, as if they were alive, watching their every move. Samuel nodded, taking one last glance at Jessica, whose mouth moved rapidly as if she was trying to say something, but no sound reached them. It was disjointed, a silent plea lost in the chaos. He twisted away, resistance flooding his veins. They had to escape. They had to warn someone. "Stay close," he urged, his voice strained as they hurried down the corridor. The oppressive air thickened around them. The walls felt closer, closing in on the identity of their hunter. It wasn't just a building. It was a beast waiting for its prey. Each pounding footstep echoed, accompanied by the relentless murmur of whispers clamoring in his ears. They began to shape into words, sinister and dark. "You shouldn't have come," they hissed, sending goosebumps racing down Samuel's arms. "Did you hear that?" Rachel gasped, looking around frantically. "What are they?" "Don't listen," he barked, forcing his focus back ahead. They approached another set of doors, the steel bars running the length of the frame like gripping claws. Samuel pushed against one, praying it would yield. It creaked open just enough for them to slip through, the air inside suffocating as they entered the next room. This area was dimly lit and filled with shimmering screens plastered with data and eerie imagery, bodies tethered to machines, eyes wide in fear. It was a nightmare brought to life, snatching away whatever shred of relief they had hoped to find. Samuel's stomach turned, a wave of nausea hitting him as he took in the horrors. No, Rachel breathed, her eyes glazing over. "What are they doing?" "Focus, Rachel. We need to find a way out." Samuel fought to maintain his composure, but doubt wormed its way into his mind. "We need a plan. Just stick with me." Suddenly, a window ahead shattered with a thunderous crash, sending shards flying like venomous arrows. Samuel barely had time to react as a dark figure emerged from the shadows, breathless and brutal. A lab coat flapped loosely around its frame. It was another scientist, eyes frantic, body trembling. "Help!" the figure screeched, pointing toward the door they had just entered. "They're coming. You have to." But that was all he managed before something terrible exploded from the darkness behind him. Something unimaginable. Monstrous claws lunged forward, ripping through the remnants of the glass. It was pure chaos. "Run!" Samuel screamed, grabbing Rachel's hand and yanking her away just as the figure was snatched up, swallowed whole by the darkness. He barely had time to register what had happened, but one thing was clear: the nightmare was escalating. As they threw themselves into the corridor, adrenaline flooded Samuel's system. "Which way?" Rachel gasped, panic blaring in her eyes. "Any way but back," he shouted, leading them down an unmarked branch of the corridor that branched off into eerie silence. The whispers picked up, fierce and distorted, spreading a chill that clung to his back. "They already know," they echoed. "You can't escape." But Samuel wouldn't allow the shadows to consume them. They kept moving, legs pumping hard, hearts pounding madly. Could they outrun whatever hunted them? Then came the noise, a low growl echoing from the darkness around them. "Turn back!" the voice urged, full of distorted menace. They skidded to a stop. The shadows were alive. "What if we can't find the exit?" Rachel's voice shook more than before, a real trembling fear settling in now. "We will." He snapped back, though the quiver in his own voice betrayed him. Was any of this even real? Was there a way out? And behind them the growl grew louder, echoing a dreadful promise. "This way! Now!" Samuel roared. Then, abruptly, something disturbed the shadows, a flicker of movement far back in the corridor, illuminating a path forward for just a moment. "Sam, we go. Now!" They darted forward, cutting toward the light, uncertainty amplifying in each step. But as they ran, the growl transformed into a howl that reverberated through the very walls of the building, a chilling reminder of the horror that lay behind them. Maybe it was just a race against time, or maybe it was something much more sinister. What awaited them around the next corner? Would they find allies or merely more shadows waiting to engulf them? As Samuel and Rachel sprinted through the corridor, their breath came in frenzied gasps, each exhale a sharp reminder of the terror chasing them. The howls twisted through the air, serrated and oppressive. It was as if the very walls craved their fear, swallowing it whole, feeding some unseen beast. Samuel's heart raced against his ribcage, a relentless drum beating the rhythm of panic in his ears. They hit a junction, an equal intersection of promise and peril. Samuel faltered, his mind jumbled with the need to escape and the ominous chant of the shadows whispering behind them. "Which way?" Rachel panted, eyes darting between the flickering light overhead and the encroaching darkness. "Left." I think Samuel hesitated. "We have to trust our instincts." Without waiting for Rachel's response, he bolted to the left, dragging her with him. The howls faded momentarily, replaced by the low thump of something heavy moving behind. "Keep moving," Samuel urged, the urgency clenching his throat. The corridor narrowed, a claustrophobic tunnel that seemed alive, breathing, suffocating. The humming lights overhead flickered, casting brittle shadows that danced along the walls, their shapes twisting into grotesque forms, mimicking the horrors they had witnessed in the laboratory. "Sam, we need to talk." Rachel's voice suddenly broke through his frantic thoughts, full of pent-up dread. He glanced back, sparing her a momentary look. "Talk about what?" He shot back, his frustration mixing with fear. "About Jessica. She can't be. She didn't look right." The reality of her words hit him like a tidal wave. He'd seen something in Jessica's eyes, an uncharacteristic depth of fear that had churned in his gut. "You don't think they did something to her, do you?" "I don't know." Rachel's voice trembled, cutting through the mounting dread. "But if we're going back to save her, then no. Saving her could be a trap." He erupted, cutting her off. Samuel didn't want to believe it. Jessica was their only thread to possible help, but what if that thread was frayed? A deafening crash sounded from behind them, a stark reminder of the reality chasing them, disrupting their fraught debate. The walls vibrated as if the entire corridor shook with rage. "Run!" Samuel bellowed, propelling them forward once more. They rounded a corner, and a sudden rush of cold air struck Samuel, as if a door had swung open to a new world. The corridor ended in a massive chamber, fluorescent lights flickering sporadically above. Monitors lined one wall, displaying chaotic blueprints and diagrams. In the center sat a towering machine, pulsating like a living creature, a heart beating with iron veins. "Do you think it's a way out?" Rachel breathed, the panic still pushing on her voice but mingled with a hint of hope. "Maybe," Samuel muttered. But his gut twisted uneasily. What had they stumbled upon? Before they could approach, the growling returned, closer this time. Samuel's eyes darted around, searching for any possible escape. "We need to figure this out quickly." They moved cautiously toward the array of machines, which buzzed and clicked like a hive of angry bees, shadows twisting ominously. He felt trapped between a deathly past and an uncertain future. "We can control it, right?" Rachel asked, her voice barely a whisper. "They have to have codes and override something." Samuel shook his head. If this is what they used to manipulate the subjects before he could finish, a shadow detached itself from the wall, coiling into the form of a figure. It was another scientist, visibly shaken but alive, dragging a bloodied arm. "You have to stop it." The man gasped, eyes wild with desperation. If you don't stop what? Samuel snapped, filled with dread. Everything, the figure coughed, blood staining his lab coat. They're controlling all of it. You're too late. With that, he collapsed, taking the weight of their impending doom along with him. Samuel! Rachel screamed, pulling him back as a wave of energy surged through the machine, a blinding light illuminating the chamber. An unearthly roar erupted from the depths of the darkness behind them. Samuel's breath hitched as he faced the reality of their situation, a machine buzzing to life, a frenzied hope for escape morphing into dread. What now? Rachel cried, backing away, eyes wide with terror. Samuel stood at the precipice of fear and resolve. They could approach the machine, feeling its pull, or face what lurked in the shadows that had now thrown down the gauntlet. Whatever it is, we have to do it together, he decided, adrenaline and fear surging together as one. And above the chaos, a shattering realization crept into his mind. What awaited them could forever shift the balance between survival and oblivion. Then came a voice, clear and commanding from the machine, an icy whisper echoing throughout the chamber. You can't run from the truth. The growls intensified, blending with the machine's pulse, a counterpoint to their fragile hope. What truth lay ahead? And were they brave enough to face it? The machine's pulse throbbed louder, in sync with the frantic beat of Samuel's heart. It cast a ghastly glow, illuminating Rachel's face, where fear and resolve battled for dominance. What truth? Rachel whispered, eyes darting, searching for answers amidst the madness. As if in response, the monitor screen sprang to life, displaying fragmented images. Desperate faces, their eyes wide and vacant, flashed in rapid succession, subjects, perhaps, of the very experiments that had driven Jessica into this nightmare. Each face felt like a knife in Samuel's gut, a cruel reminder of what they were up against. We have to shut it down, Samuel yelled, his voice nearly lost in the din of the roaring machine and the shadows closing in. Shut what down? Rachel's voice trembled, uncertainty creeping in. The looming threat from the darkness intensified, the growls rumbling like thunder. She stepped back, fear pooling in her eyes. Suddenly the machine shuddered, vibrating violently. Samuel reached for Rachel, pulling her close as the screen shifted again. This time it wasn't the haunted faces, it was a video feed. They were inside the laboratory, their own selves from hours before. The unsuspecting duo stood by the testing table. Rachel's heart sank as she recognized that moment. Is this us? Looks like it, Samuel replied. His gaze locked onto the screen. But how? We didn't record. A chilling laugh echoed from the machine, slicing through the air. You are merely pawns in a greater game, it taunted, synthesizing a mockery of a human voice. The walls trembled as the growling intensified, now accompanied by the sound of steps, heavy and deliberate. Samuel's blood ran cold as dark figures began to materialize from the corners of the room, merging into a grotesque formation. Samuel, we need to go. Now, Rachel screamed, yanking his arm. But Jessica, he hesitated, torn between loyalty and self-preservation. She's not here. And we don't know what we'll find. Her eyes were wide with anguish, reflecting the shadows that seemed to close in around them. The machine surged again, shooting out a beam of light that split the chamber, momentarily revealing a doorway behind the towering monolith. But it was a struggle to tear his gaze from the flickering screens and the figure that stood before him. A silhouette emerged, backlit by the glow, a grotesque mix of human and something else, something monstrous. It leered with a wide grin, eyes glinting with malice. You think escaping will change your fate? The truth is already part of you. The shadows writhed as if responding to its words, pulsing with life. With every heartbeat, the sense of doom mounted, binding Samuel and Rachel as they teetered on the edge of decision. What if Jessica was trapped in that truth? What if discovering it meant sealing their own fates? Fight or flight, Rachel. Samuel shouted, panic tightening his throat. We have one chance. Rachel nodded, a fierce determination igniting in her eyes. Together we make it count. They moved toward the doorway, footsteps thunderous against the metal floor. The figures coiling in the darkness lunged, their howls harmonizing with their own frantic breaths. With one last look at the machine, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that they were making a colossal mistake. The truth was out there, lurking in the depth of the room they just fled. But alive or dead, one thing became clear. It wasn't he the only danger hunting them as they dove through the doorway. A deafening roar shattered the silence, leaving them suspended on the brink of another reality. In that sudden moment of escape, an echo haunted him, that voice. You can't run from the truth. What if they didn't? Heart racing, Samuel turned to Rachel. We have to go back, don't we? But even as he spoke, he felt the weight of the darkness behind them tighten its grip, forcing them into a choice that would resonate long after. And as they stood poised on the cusp of discovery, the churning abyss whispered secrets of danger yet unseen. Would confronting the truth lead them to freedom or to their absolute demise? The moment they burst through the doorway, a cold gust swept over them, the rank smell of metal and decay penetrating their lungs. The exit led into a narrow corridor, its flickering fluorescent lights casting erratic shadows that danced along the walls. Samuel glanced back, the door slamming shut behind them, echoing their escape like a final warning. Where do we go now? Rachel gasped, breath fogging in front of her as panic thrummed in her chest. Samuel strained to listen. The growls had quieted, but the distant mechanical hum of the machine still thrummed in their ears, an unsettling reminder of what they'd just fled. He could feel the relentless weight of what they had encountered, a mixture of dread and urgency creeping into his bones. We need to find another way out, something that leads us back to the surface. If we can make it out of this place, he trailed off, uncertainty shadowing his thoughts. Back to the truth, Rachel interjected softly, her voice trembling. She paused, biting her lip. I can't shake the feeling that we might be wrong, that going back could be worse than staying away. Just as Samuel opened his mouth to respond, the ground beneath them shuddered. Dust trickled from the ceiling and Rachel shrieked, clutching his arm. A low guttural roar emanated through the corridor, echoing like thunder, mingling with frantic footsteps skittering in the darkness. Something's coming, Samuel yelled, pulling Rachel along, forcing her to run. They raced down the corridor, their footsteps pounding like war drums against the metal floor. In that moment, they were not just running from a monster. They were running from their own decisions, the burden of Jessica, and the potential horrors awaiting them if they returned. The lights flickered, revealing momentarily what lay ahead, a door at the end, barely visible, locked away like a hidden truth. Samuel, it's locked, Rachel exclaimed, desperation in her voice rising like a crescendo. Damn it, he cursed, ramming a shoulder against the heavy door. We have to break through. A chilling howl echoed behind them, close now, gnashing teeth and horrible breath mixing with the rancid scent of something alive yet grotesque. With one last push, the door creaked, splintered, and gave way, sending them crashing into the room beyond. They stumbled into a dimly lit chamber filled with files, monitors, and maps strewn about, chaos filled with fragmented histories. Samuel's eyes caught sight of something that made his heart stall. An extensive board marked with names similar to the faces he'd seen on the screens. What is all this? Rachel whispered, fear clawing at her throat. Data subjects evidence, he muttered, scanning the names, recognizing them. These are people they experimented on, people we have to find. Rachel's gaze flickered to a section of the wall, a series of photographs depicting herself, Samuel, and Jessica, all tagged with dates and cryptic notes. What the hell is this? Why are we here? The reality struck them both simultaneously. They were not just players. They were central to this twisted game. Then came that laugh again, now much closer. Did you really think escaping was the end? The voice spilled from the shadows, shadowy tendrils stretching toward them. You opened the door to your destiny. Samuel gritted his teeth, stepping in front of Rachel, adrenaline surging in his veins. We're not afraid of you. We will fight. But as the last word escaped his lips, the lights flickered one last time, plunging them into an abyss of darkness. They stood frozen, breaths held tight, the growls growing louder and closer. And in the heart of that darkness came a chilling realization. The truth wasn't just out there, it was closing in fast. Rachel's voice was barely above a whisper. What now? They were surrounded by shadows waiting to devour them whole. They had to make a choice, but was running away truly an option? As the walls pulsed with the sinister energy of the lurking entity, Samuel grasped Rachel's hand tightly. We find Jessica. We uncover the truth. Or die trying. And just then the door behind them slammed shut, sealing their fate in the labyrinthine nightmare. Would they make it through? Or would they be mere echoes lost in the void? The darkness enveloped them, an oppressive weight that made it hard to breathe. Samuel could feel Rachel's hand trembling in his, and his own heart raced wildly as eerie whispers slithered through the air. They were trapped in a twisted reality, the hairs on his neck prickling as he strained to perceive anything in the suffocating gloom. "Stay close, don't let go," he whispered, trying to inject a sense of calm. But his voice trembled too, betraying the raw fear spiraling within. Suddenly, a dim light flickered back to life ahead, revealing a small dank room cluttered with mismatched equipment and broken apparatuses. The flickering illuminated the pale, gaunt face of a woman seated in the corner, her eyes wide with terror. "Help me, please," she cried, the sound cracking like glass in the stillness. Her pleas pierced through the fog of dread, drawing both Rachel and Samuel towards her. As they approached, a chilling realization washed over them. It was the familiar face of one of the subjects from the photographs, a woman they had seen in the lab files. Who are you?" Samuel's voice was cautious. "I'm Emily," she stammered, clutching her knees. I was part of their experiments. You have to get out of here. They'll come for you too." Rachel stepped forward, her brow knitted in confusion and concern. "What do you mean? What did they do to you?" "They played with our minds, our bodies. They took us, twisted us into something we weren't. It's all in the files. The ones you saw." Emily choked on her words, the terror of her memories spilling out in fragmented gasps. "They're not just doing tests. They're creating monsters." The floor trembled beneath them again, and Samuel sensed an unmistakable stirring of danger. "We can't just leave you here," he began, but the urgency in the air silenced his words. "If you stay, you'll end up like me," Emily pleaded, desperation bleeding into her final words. "You have to find a way to escape. There's a hidden exit through the maintenance shafts, but you must hurry." Just then a heavy sound thudded outside, sharp and rhythmic, a pounding that reverberated through the very walls, the growls escalating into a symphony of chaos. "They're coming," Emily wailed, her wide eyes darting toward the door. Samuel's instincts kicked in. "This way." He pulled Rachel towards a narrow passageway that wound deeper into the labyrinth. Heart pounding, they dashed down the corridor, dragging Emily along as the chaos multiplied behind them. The lights flickered again, casting monstrous shadows that leapt alongside them, and Samuel couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted. Was it the entity? Was it the very shadows that breathed despair? He dared not look back. "Keep moving," Rachel urged, her voice quivering with adrenaline. Narrowly avoiding a grasping claw materializing from the dark, they pushed on, following Emily's erratic directions. Each footfall echoed fear, a countdown to danger, and each twist and turn felt like they were trapped in a nightmare where every moment could be their last. They reached the mouth of a maintenance shaft, a rusted vent that jutted away from the corridor. Samuel could hear the thing behind them, its breath a sickening whisper. "Go. I'll hold them off," Emily shouted, her expression fierce. "No." Samuel realized he couldn't abandon her, but Rachel tugged at his arm, pulling him just in time as the creature's growl filled the corridor, rumbling beneath their very skin. "Snap out of it. We have to choose," she exclaimed, shoving him toward the vent. The irony of Emily's sacrifice hung heavy in the air. With one last desperate glance back, Samuel squeezed into the confined space, inches away from madness. They crawled low, Rachel just ahead, and he pressed forward, a cold fear gripping them both. But as they crawled further into the darkness, dread seeped into Samuel's thoughts. The heavy pounding grew fainter, but was it truly fading away, or were they merely escaping one doom for another? As they reached a dead end, Samuel gasped, hands searching the metal walls for any exit. He froze, a chilling realization settling in. There's nowhere else to go. And in that suffocating silence, a horrifying understanding unfolded. Sometimes the safest path was the one you dared not take. What truth awaited them in the shadows? Would they find salvation, or would they forge their demise in ignorance? Samuel's heart pounded like a war drum in his chest as he and Rachel clawed their way through the cramped maintenance shaft. The darkness pressed against them, thick and suffocating, but there was no choice to be made now. They had to push forward, deeper into the shadows. The sound of muffled growls lingered in the air behind them, a constant reminder of the horror that lurked just out of sight. "Keep going," Samuel urged, his voice barely louder than a whisper. Rachel climbed ahead, her slender frame a beacon of determination. The metal walls of the vent were cold against his fingertips, each scrape and bump a reminder of their fragile escape. Samuel inhaled deeply, aware of the grime clinging to the air, but he couldn't afford to falter now. Not when the weight of the truth pressed down his throat, constricting. Suddenly Rachel halted. "Sam, I see something." She pointed to a flicker of light spilling from a grate just ahead of them. Could be an exit. Hope surged within him, flooding his veins with urgency. They shuffled closer, their knees scraping against the unforgiving metal, a sense of purpose finally hovering above the chaos that had consumed them. With a swift kick, Samuel loosened the grate until it fell away, revealing a narrow tunnel illuminated by a faint orange glow. "This way!" he shouted, pushing Rachel ahead before following closely. The world opened up before them, the light spilling warmth against their skin, a sharp contrast to the cold dread that had seeped into their bones. Emerging into the large room, they stumbled into what looked like a makeshift operations center, cluttered with monitors displaying swirling images and frantic data streams. But among the chaos lay something unexpected, a door, wide open, bathed in blinding brightness. "Sam, we have to go," Rachel urged, stepping forward. Suddenly the air thickened, stifling their urgency. The whispers they had heard before returned, swirling around them, wrapping them in an icy embrace. Samuel's skin prickled as he caught sight of a familiar silhouette emerging from the shadows, the twisted figure of Dr. Edward Harper. "Leaving so soon?" Harper chuckled darkly. The light flickering made his face appear like a ghoulish mask, the madness reflected in his eyes. "You've only skimmed the surface of the truth. Do you really believe that escaping changes anything? Get away from us!" Samuel shouted, stepping protectively in front of Rachel. He couldn't let her face that man again. The walls tingled with danger, vibrating with the remnants of unanswered questions. But you see," Harper continued, undeterred. "The subjects, the faces, they were all just part of the design, the masterpiece. Each scream a stroke of genius. You can't run from what's already inside you." Before he could leap toward Harper, Rachel lunged for the door. "We have to go," she cried, terror blooming in her eyes. Samuel hesitated for a heartbeat before following her, knowing they couldn't afford to listen to his taunts any longer. As they barreled through the door, they found themselves back in the familiar labyrinth of the facility. The walls felt like they were vibrating with anger, the shadows clawing at their heels, trying to drag them back into the darkness. They sprinted through the corridors, turning corners with desperation, the flickering lights overhead marking their path like a heartbeat. The sound of pounding footsteps echoed behind them, the monstrous growls intensifying, feeding off the fear that saturated every fiber of their beings. "Rachel, this way!" Samuel shouted, spotting an emergency exit sign glowing at the end of the hall. They raced forward, the adrenaline surging through them, burning in their legs like fire. Just as they reached the door, a massive shadow loomed behind them, something dark and ungodly, clawing through the remnants of light. With a final push, Samuel pulled open the emergency exit, crashing through the door into the cold night air. The world outside was a relief, the chill biting against their skin, but they didn't stop. They ran, driven forward by the primal need to escape, hearts beating in unison with the thud of their hurried steps. As they rounded the corner of the building, Samuel skidded to a halt, panting heavily. He turned to Rachel, taking in her wild eyes, the relief and fear swirling together. "We did it, Rach. We're outside." But a sense of dread roiled in his gut. It wasn't over yet. Suddenly, a distant siren wailed, the sound cutting through their brief sanctuary. "We need to make sure they know," Rachel gasped. "We have to tell someone, everyone. They can't keep this secret." Samuel nodded, determination igniting once more. "Yes, we will. We'll expose them." But as they started to walk away, deep in their hearts was an unshakable truth. Whatever they had experienced inside, the darkness would never fully erase their lives, nor the choices they had made. They had seen too much, and even as the night beckoned a sense of freedom, they understood that the real battle was just beginning. As they moved toward the lights of the town, the stillness of the night wrapped around them, a blanket of anticipation. They promised each other that this would not be the end. "Together," Rachel whispered as they stepped into the light, embracing the pulsating hope of a new beginning. "Together," Samuel echoed, feeling the warmth of determination ignite within him. No matter what came next, they would face it side by side, ready to uncover the truth, Come what may, now, as you've journeyed with Samuel and Rachel through their harrowing escape, I have to ask, what did you think? Did you love the twists, the suspense? If you can feel their struggle and triumph, you need to subscribe right now so you don't miss our next adventure. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and help us grow. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments with your reactions, your theories about this epic ending. What will our brave duo face next? Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with 5 friends who need to hear this story. Your support matters, and only true fans understand the power of spreading this epic journey.